In today's episode, Rishi and I analyze BeardBrand, a DTC company that sells men's grooming products. We're going to be sharing some ideas on how they can increase conversion rate, sales, and lifetime value by focusing on three major opportunities. The first one, it's all about the product page images and how they can make them more compelling, more persuasive, and in general, more on brand. The second, Rishi is going to walk you through his deconstruction process and he'll show you how he finds conversion opportunities that these guys are missing out on. Finally, third, we'll show how they can increase lifetime value by making the cross-sell products and the subscription option much more prominent and evident. Now, before we get started, we are planning to release a lot of juicy episodes in the upcoming months. So make sure to hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss out on those episodes. Now, time to get into the show. Keep watching.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. And this time we are going to talk about a brand that I'm not qualified to talk about because I don't have a beard and Lorenzo has somewhat of a beard. But I don't think, a little stubble. But we're going to talk about a brand called BeardBrand. And some of you who are active on Twitter and LinkedIn, certainly Twitter, know about the brand because it's a fairly prominent founder. He's pretty active on Twitter. That's pretty much how we actually discovered it.
He was on Shark Tank as well.
Was
I didn't know that. Yeah, I actually googled the brand because I wanted to see how much revenue they were making. And yeah, he went on Shark Tank, but he didn't get a deal.
He didn't get a deal. Interesting.
No.
Interesting.
No. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a and that's really interesting. I did not know that. But yeah, so we're going to talk about BeardBrand. We're opening up the mobile version of the page just because I'm pretty confident that 95% of people that are seeing this website are seeing it on their mobile phones, and probably 90% of people are buying it on their phones as well. So this is the top of the page. I'm going to breeze through this pretty quickly because in my analysis, I'm going to show deconstruction, which is where we essentially kind of look at every single pixel and element on the page. And all of my ideas are based on that. And then Lorenzo is going to jump in and talk about his ideas. And we're going to have more of a kind of like a joint session today. So this is the top of the page. And the first thing you'll notice is the first thing that my eyes fell on was this idea that they were emphasizing this new cap. And so we'll talk, I'll kind of explore that a little more, but I think it's because my theory is, Lorenzo, I wonder what your thought is, but I think a lot of their customers are repeat buyers. And, it's, I don't know what the buying frequency is for this product, but I assume because you just put a few drops, it probably lasts a whole year or something. And so I think the idea is that people who are coming back who like to buy this flavor or this fragrance of temple smoke shouldn't feel like, oh, this is not what I bought last year. That was my theory for why they're specifying that's a new cap. What are your thoughts?
So actually, I have a section in reviews mining, which I didn't code because I just didn't want to talk about product improvement. But I have a column called product improvement where people give recommendation on stuff that should be improving about a product. And actually, a lot of people complain about the cap.
So it's a new and improved cap then.
Exactly. So my hypothesis here on why they're saying new cap is because they listen to their customers. Amazing. I love it. The customer said, well, there's a problem with the cap because I think it was leaking or something. I can't remember. So they listen to the customers and now they emphasize that that's a new cap. Right.
Well, if that's a really interesting thing, though. If that's the case, I think they're doing it wrong, because if I'm a new buyer and I see a new cap, it's totally meaningless information for me. If they would have said new and improved cap and made it a clickable element, and when you click on it, talk about this new innovation that they've brought that's even better, instead of saying that, our previous cap sucked, I would have been like, oh my God, these guys care about even the small details. Because Procter, I remember during my MBA, we had a case study where one of the people from Procter & Gamble was telling us that her job, she's a Stanford MBA, and her job was to design a better bottle cap. I mean, it's that, it's a big deal with, selling millions and millions of units, right? So I was thinking like, that's a really interesting idea. Okay, but so let's just move forward. if that's okay with you, Lorenzo.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Let me just look at this. Let me refresh this. I noticed something strange. I think I noticed it when I was doing deconstruction as well. See, it's if you look at the image carousel, it's for some reason it's kind of when and I don't know, maybe because I'm not sure why it's defaulting to the second flavor, but I don't know if you noticed that. But anyway, it's irrelevant. One thing we know from heat maps and eye tracking studies is that people are really obsessed with looking at images. And in this case, and we'll talk about this in my analysis more, they are basically using this image carousel to show the different fragrances that they have, which is a strange choice to focus on. So you come here, it says beard oil. It communicates what the name is. 7,470 reviews, lots of social proof. Price point mentioned very clearly. Then there's the fragrances that they offer: the Old Money, Temple Smoke, Four Vices, Tree Ranger, Spice Citrus, Tea Tree. Then there's quantity. There's an add to cart, pay with Google Pay. Then there's these more options, which I'm not sure what this is. Oh, okay. There's Apple. I guess there's Amazon checkout as well on the cart page.
Yeah, it goes straight to checkout.
And then below this, they have the description. What's interesting here is that they've actually got no description at the top at all. So it kind of all of it is below the add to cart button. And then they talk about the fact that they're the world's best beard oil just got even better and reformulated with no known DHT inhibiting ingredients, and talks about what the product does.
Did you know what DHT is?
I did not know, but I figured it out like later on the page. I figured it out, but you're right. This is a great point. I didn't know this when I was reading this. That's a great point.
Yeah, I had to Google it because I wasn't sure what it is.
Yeah.
And it's about the testosterone, right?
Correct. It doesn't inhibit the testosterone. Correct. That's a great point. Yeah. So that's a really interesting thing is that, if you really think about it from the perspective of the buyer who's coming here for the first time, they don't know what DHT is. So when you say that we've reformulated something with no known DHT, well, I don't even know what DHT is. So how can I appreciate your reformulation, right? BeardBrand delivers a brand new game-changing beard oil. Our blend of blah, blah, things I can't pronounce. And castor oil is like nothing else in the market. It absorbs faster, lasts longer, and is even less greasy than the original. And I think, Lorenzo, that greasy factor is something you want to talk about as well. Crazy, right? One thing I do like about this kind of copy
personality.
It has personality. It has personality. I don't like when that copy is over the top and like trying too hard, but I think something like this is a nice touch. And then of course they have their upsell over here if you want to get buy a 3-pack. And then they have their assurance messaging. I actually like the choice of using a different font style. It's italics. It just visually stands out. And so I noticed it. And here they say, if you don't love it, you can exchange it. And then here is where the product information comes in. And so here they do explain what DHT stands for, but they missed it at the top of the page. And I think that's a lost opportunity. They kind of explain the same thing. I wonder if, it's kind of like they kind of explained over here, then talk about how to use beard oil, and then really talks about fragrances and ingredients. So the conclusion that I made, and Lorenzo, I don't know if you had the same conclusion or not, but to me, this is to a great extent a fragrance game. So I'm assuming a lot of people are buying it because they're like, Temple Smoke sounds cool. Or, of course they want beard oil. That is of course the known, but they don't have any beard oil that has no fragrance, right? So clearly people are drawn to the fake fragrance options. And so to me, it's a fragrance game. And if it's a fragrance game, to me, it's the wine selling game, and wine, is storytelling. So to me, that was the first thought that I had, was like, okay, I wonder how they're explaining these fragrances. And we'll get into the copy a little later on as well. But under Old Money, which is one of their fragrances, they say, breathe deep, talk about Old Money with 23 fragrance notes, blah, 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 blah. It's fine. I didn't think it really, I didn't feel like super, impressed by it. And I just want to clarify something over here. It's something I should have mentioned at the start of the show, is that, again, I want to be very, very clear about this. These are all amazing brands. These guys have 7,070 reviews. And I think Lorenzo has some information about they're probably selling.
I think it's an 8-figure brand. So
crazy. Crazy. Yeah. And I was seeing their YouTube channel, and they have like one of the videos
Yeah.
had like 6 million views. These guys are incredibly successful. And I know Eric from his posts, he's like super into e-commerce stuff. So he really knows his stuff. So when I say something like, like, oh, this description isn't great. I mean, obviously, I'm pretty sure this was written by an incredibly good copywriter. I'm just saying that I think there might be more opportunity here. And is the only point. And also,
I actually think these guys are the ones that started the whole men grooming movement a few years ago. And everybody else, started to get into the kind of like competing with them.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So what I should also say at this point of the show, I feel obligated to say, is that please do subscribe to the show. We've been getting some really good comments coming in, and we respond to every comment, and we actually we really want this to be interactive, because one of the comments that came in for 2 shows ago was to do an interview do a jobs to be done show. So we'll actually be doing an episode on jobs to be done. So your comments really matter to us. And someone actually wrote a comment just yesterday where she identified a selling angle that we had not thought about. And I think that's great for Hush,
Yeah,
I believe. So that's a really good, that's how we should do this. And so this is very much create a classroom environment. So the page is, here they're talking about all the fragrances. And one thing that's really interesting, I want to point this out because I actually bring this up in my deconstruction again, is that they've made a very interesting choice where first of all, the fragrances are described much lower on the page. If my thesis is correct, and my thesis could be wrong, if my thesis is correct that this is a fragrance play, then I would have actually figured out a way to make the fragrance content appear higher on the page. And I'll actually talk about that in my analysis. But the thing to note is that they talk about Old Money, Temple Smoke, which are all the fragrances, 4 Vices. So what would happen is, imagine if someone comes here and says, 4 Vices sounds really cool. They would probably kind of skip Temple Smoke and all that and just come to this part. And then they won't necessarily read these other fragrances, Tree Danger, for example. There's no reason for them to read it because they're not interested in that. But I'll explain to you a flaw that they made. The beard oil ingredients are actually shown below all the fragrances. And this is a problem because, they do mention the beard oil ingredients at the top of the page as well. But if the ingredients matter for the buyer, and I don't know if they do or not, but if they do matter for the buyer, I would have actually repeated the ingredients with each fragrance or something like that, just so that, because that, if someone's interested in, anyway, that was just my thought.
Yeah. My thought when I saw that they had so many, well, not so many, but 6 type of product variants and fragrances, I was like, well, I wonder, okay, maybe somebody has considered all of them. I wonder what drawn somebody to pick one versus the other one.
Absolutely.
When they can't even smell it, right?
That's right.
So to me, even figure that out with like a, after purchase survey, like what are the other kind of like sense that you have considered and what drawn you to like pick that one over others?
If I was given a chance to be the VP of e-commerce for this brand for a year and I was working on this page, first of all, I would only work on one page. I think this idea of like, let's work on the whole website is kind of stupid. But the point is that I would actually zero in on this question. How do we communicate fragrances? Number one. Number two, how do people search fragrances? So I would, your post-purchase analysis is absolutely spot on.
One more thing. You just said, oh, I believe this is a fragrance explanation play. If you go in my reviews mining.
Oh, no. And by the way, we should mention, we don't share notes. I haven't seen is this the one?
Yeah, go into benefits, tab. Look at what you see on the top. So now basically the benefits, if you make it a little bit bigger, the benefits tab is all dedicated to, what are the benefits of the product? What are the results that people get from the product? I kind of compiled both benefits and results in there. At the top, as you can see, with, pretty good amount of people.
More than the second most important benefit, which is keep the beard soft, which is the whole reason they made it.
Exactly. So everybody loves the brand, the smell. So it's definitely seems to be a fragrance play for sure.
And that's kind of how you would triangulate. Like I didn't look at, of course, the reviews mining, or I didn't even read the reviews, but my thesis was that, the fragrances really matter. And then looking at the reviews mining, what we are seeing is that, they certainly matter, if not more, but at least equal to the efficacy of the product itself,
Yep.
which automatically tells me that that's an attribute that I would continue focusing on. Part of CRO work is for us to be able to identify it's like in martial arts, where, if you look at a karate black belt and you compare them to a WWE kind of wrestler, I mean, the wrestler looks so much bigger. But what the karate black belt does is, or any kind of martial arts black belt does, is they know the pressure points. Like, he can literally like squeeze you at the right point and like knock you out. And so as a CRO, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to find like what the pressure point is, so I can have maximum effect without having to kind of say, okay, let's do these 50 things, right? So awesome. So Lorenzo, should I go back to the?
Yeah, go back to the Deconstruction.
All right. So I'm gonna make this a little. Oh, actually, you know what? Wrong. So this is okay. So guys, what I've done is at the start of the process, what I like to do is I like to do the deconstruction, and the deconstruction is, and I think, to me personally, of course, it's the most important step of the whole analysis part, because what we are doing in deconstruction is we are being forced as a CRO or as an optimizer. Maybe should we stop using the word CRO, Lorenzo? What's your take? I don't know if you like that term. You don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I think everybody understands what CRO is, even though I would totally drop it, because I think CRO is a little bit not really always about conversions. But yeah, let's keep CRO.
All right. So if the biggest mistake that we make in marketing is that, especially if you have experience with marketing, is that we have this tendency to jump to the prescription stage, tend to say, oh, I know what the problem is, I'm going to fix it. And in that process, sometimes we overlook some of the other small details. Sometimes, getting a home run is nice, but it's very difficult to get to. Sometimes singles and doubles are really good for the team to win the game. So that's what deconstruction gives us. It gives us the singles and doubles. So what I've done here is I've annotated every single attribute element on that page. And for this session, I actually didn't write commentary about every element, because I didn't want this to be like a 3-hour monologue, but I wanted to focus in on a few key attributes. So let's start from the top. So the first thing you'll notice I've said over here is that wasted real estate that we could have used as a picture story. We know from analysis that people really, by the way, I apologize, the screenshot didn't come out very good, but it's a proper image. We know from analysis that people actually really are fixated on physical objects. And I think people, Lorenzo, in the reviews mining, even said that the bottle looks kind of sexy or something, right? Is that correct?
Yep, they love the design.
Yeah, they love the design. So the design is an important criteria. So I'm sure many people will be actually fixated on this. And because they're fixated on this, and because the sales pitch, assuming that the sales pitch is about the fragrances over here, is buried below, I think this is an opportunity for the brand to maybe. So I noticed one of the headlines that they had, world's best beard oil just got better. And I thought to myself, well, why not just have this as a headline in the image itself? So you're kind of incorporating those two things. So it says, you've just landed, and I changed it. Instead of saying I just said, you've just landed on the world's best beard oil, welcome. And I'm not a graphic designer, so I just kind of did something to kind of fit it in. And then one of the things that I want to do is I want to actually nudge the user to know at least that there's tons of content below the fold. So I just put a little thing over here. Let us now show what makes us the best. Just a little arrow pointing down. Any graphic designer would look at this and they would feel it's very bad, but I'm assuming I can hire a good designer to make it look good. Yeah. So my job is just.
Is that arrow an anchor link where people tap on it, it goes straight to the description?
I didn't really think that far. I just said, if I can nudge people, so it could just be a part of the image. It could just be interactive. I didn't think that through. Yeah. The other thing to keep in mind is that they have these. So again, point number 2 was this option over here. And as we have seen, if you go through the images, they are basically just each of the fragrances that they have. And so I felt it was, I thought it was wasted it was wasted because there's no extra value that's been given. The user's clicking on something just to see different names. So I wanted to make it more valuable. So this is another point, is that, I don't come up with just one idea. Sometimes I'll say, okay, well, let's come up with a couple of flavors of this idea. Maybe this is not a good idea. Maybe there's something else. So what I did for this concept, so it's the same element, but here what I did was very simple idea. The first flavor is Temple Smoke. And I just actually added the hyperlink over here itself for Temple Smoke. Lorenzo, are you able to see that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then all I did was, when you click on it, there's a light box that explains that fragrance right there. So one of the simplest hacks for me is always to co-locate things that are related. If a user is looking at Temple Smoke and says, oh, this is really interesting, why do we want them to scroll lower on the page to see the description, which they do have lower on the page, but why not just have a link over here that exposes that content at this point itself? So questions, Lorenzo, or should I just proceed?
No. I think, I remember when I first looked at the different images that they have, because the first 3 products, the only thing that changes is actually the name of the product, but the color of the label stays the same. So I was like, well, so right away I was like, oh, why did they show the same product 3 times? Just because I didn't read the name of the product, right? So I think there's a little bit of a missed opportunity here on a few things. Like, they just show images of the product. What about images of people with the beard and applying the product, right?
100%. Yeah, that would be even better. And actually, that's a really good point. I want to add commentary on that, because so one of the questions might be like, Rishi, why didn't you think of that idea? And I want to just talk about this, because this is one of the constraints that I like to live within, is that I don't like to assume assets are available. Because what happens is that when sometimes when you go to clients and say, hey, why don't we have these lifestyle pictures? And the client, of course, these guys do have it, but many times clients actually don't have it. And then the client says, well, we don't have it. Well, we've left, so I like to always assume that assets don't exist unless I can actually find on the website myself. So that's the reason why I didn't say that. But what Lorenzo is saying is 100% correct, that what would be much more valuable is if they showed maybe men with women, standing, so they can, there's this suggestion that women like it as well. I think that's right. And they have so much video content. And I think one of the things that Lorenzo, you talked about this idea, like that because you are aware of what the brand does and how big the brand is and how successful the brand is, you felt like something was kind of missing, right? On the product page, like for a person just coming cold to the page, that,
Yeah, absolutely. So this is actually one of my ideas. They do an amazing job, really, really, really amazing job from a branding perspective, all over YouTube. I think they actually first started on Tumblr. Remember Tumblr?
Really?
Does it still exist?
I don't think so. Maybe. I think Yahoo bought them, right?
Yeah, Yahoo bought them. But they have like super, super strong brand on YouTube. I've seen like Instagram as well, like lots of strong brand. But I didn't feel that the strong brand was actually brought to the product page. There's no picture of a human, of a person on the product page. The way, and again, when you came up with the idea of doing BeardBrand, my first thought right away, my triggered was, well, these guys are the guys that started the whole men grooming
movement.
Movement, right? And to me, on that product page, I don't have that feeling that it's a movement brand. Which brings up, that could generate a bunch of ideas around that, right? As you said, like lifestyle images, people with a lot of different beard styles. I would love to see, like, one thing that I thought about is, I've tested in the past showcasing what the actual product looks like. So not just like the bottle, but also like, the oil. I've had success running tests where I show what the supplement.
There is a really sexy image. I love this image. I love
that too. And I think it's like super sexy. Like, wow, like it's $1,000 image, but I think it's a little bit too much down.
Absolutely.
And I wonder how many people are actually seeing that image.
No, that's absolutely right. And I mean, your point is a very valid point. I think it's almost like this product page is perfect for someone who's a big fan of the BeardBrand content and has been, let's say, following them on Instagram or YouTube and has watched a bunch of videos and has finally decided, okay, I'm just going to buy their oil. Yep. And I absolutely agree with their team to say that that's probably actually how most sales are happening, because people aren't just like, you know, a lot of people are coming here because they've seen their founder post content, post videos. Their whole YouTube channel is like incredible. They have like all these, I guess, like beard celebrities, right? Who are like posting content. And one of the videos I saw had like 6 million views. So, I mean, very, very popular. So it's very correct in assuming that a lot of people are actually brand aware when they actually come to the BeardBrand page, product page. And in that case, they don't need to see any of this stuff. But the thing is that number is not 100%. No matter how good you are, the number is 100%. And the thing is that the people, the delta, the people that are coming to this page that don't know, they're the ones who are absolutely not buying. So when you're thinking about like affecting a conversion rate of a group, I would actually go after the group that is not buying. And those people, all you have to do is you have to surface on the product page itself. Like you could simply have a call to action that says, have you ever heard of BeardBrand before, right? And if you click on it, then you can just change up the content and say, okay, well, here's 5 videos, whatever it is, right? So I think your point is really valid.
The other thing I thought about is if you go in my reviews mining document, you know, few things that came up when reading through the reviews. One was like, I got compliments from friends about the smell and the look of my beard. Yeah. And then the other one that I thought it was very interesting. My wife says, I smell good, or she loves it, right? So now what happens when I was thinking about this, I was like, okay, you know, is this could be considered like a sort of like a force that brings people towards buying the product, because is this product really for them, or is it because of the compliments that they get from friends, or is it because their wife loves it and they're buying it for them, but they're also buying it for
it's like the cologne based space, right? I mean, it's men's cologne is all about sex appeal, and men buy it because they feel they'll suddenly become Brad Pitt, right? Which they of course won't, but that's what they feel. No, that's really good. Is there anything else you want to mention about your?
The only thing I was gonna say is that because of that, I would love to test an example of like a testimonial that instead of being like a man that he's talking about how amazing the beard is, I would love to have a testimonial of a wife or a girl, like a girlfriend, for example, that talks about the impact that the beard has on her, right?
It's a great point. So going back to the reviews mining real quick, not reviews mining, the deconstruction. So the idea here is essentially, as we mentioned, is to take that content, is to, instead of having it lower on the page, kind of surface it up. So my idea was that as people are kind of going through these image carousel, we won't, what's going on? As people are going through these images, this would keep on changing, whatever the fragrance is. So there's relevant content that appears over here. Point number 3, I said there's no comment. Point number 4, I said, you know, again, this is something I've used hundreds of times, but you know, these small change, and I want to really, my whole purpose with this deconstruction thing is I really want to talk to people about the cumulative effect of small improvements. You don't have to have like $1 million idea for a page. You can have small ideas. So here it says 7470 reviews. I've simply changed it to you must read at least a few of these 7,040. You know. So
you're such a teaser there.
And I actually did do some price justification actually. So this time I did it slightly differently. So I'll move the $29 to the left, and to the right of it, I added a button that says quality or nothing. And so again, it just dramatizes this idea that, that it's either we would rather not have, and of course I didn't show the copy over here, but I'm basically saying, we can construct some sales pitch.
Also, let's explain what you've done there, because probably not a lot of people are understanding this. What happens is that, I mean, I haven't done market research to understand how much the other beard oil brands cost. So I have no idea. My assumption is that this one is a little bit of a premium product. So what you've done with that copy, you're basically imagine, the way I have to think about it is like the person that is driving, before the person sees that the price is high, you're actually turning towards like, oh no, it's about quality. This is exactly what you've done.
That's right. No, you have caught it. And the thing I like about, this is the great thing I like about adding call to actions, is that for a person who is unaffected by the price point, they would not even notice it. 87% of what's on a page, people don't physically even notice because our brains aren't capable of processing all of that. So sometimes I think CEOs worry too. I've had CEOs tell me like, Rishi, if we add a call to action over here that kind of draws attention to the price point, then I don't want to draw attention to the price point. And first of all, I disagree with that whole thing because you cannot avoid price. They're going to notice the price. But secondly, for someone who for someone who's like, listen, I'm okay paying $29 for beard oil. They won't look at the button and say, oh, I'm now not going to buy. It doesn't make any sense, So, what I've done here is so for point number 6, what again goes back to the same, going back to first principles. You're asking a user to select between these fragrances, but there's no explanation for what these fragrances are. So all I did was I put a developer note to say that add this link. So basically add a line break after fragrance. So move all of these 4 buttons down by 1 line. And it simply says that an explanation of each of our 6 exotic fragrances. And when you click on it, we will show this content right here. So essentially I'm taking that exact same content from lower on the page that was in the fragrances. And go ahead, Lorenzo, you were saying something?
No, finish.
And one change that I've made, and I think I mentioned this at the top of the video as well, is that the one change I've made is that on the page itself, they have the fragrances over here, and then they have the ingredients right below it. And in my concept, what I've done is you'll notice that after each of the fragrances, I'm actually just copy pasted this ingredients list just because I want everyone to be able to access it. So you'll see it's over and over again. And then this is all of the content that's going to appear for people that click it. So there's a note over here. Let me just read this. On the live page, beard ingredients have only been shown. Okay, so this is what I just explained to you guys. After setting the page, I conclude the fragrance. We already covered this. So I basically said, these notes I add are so that I can actually have a conversation with the client. Of course, this is not our client, but I like to treat it the same way so we can treat it seriously. So I'm saying after setting the page, I've concluded that fragrance is one of our biggest conversion catalysts for this brand. Therefore, I would like to hire a creative copywriter and develop 3 different variations for each explanation of the fragrance and see what connects best with the reader. If it's truly a fragrance play, then the way you describe those fragrances really, really matters. And I gave some examples of this. So for example, the fragrance explanation on the current page is quite poetic. So the way they explain the fragrances is kind of poetic. But one of the things that I would like to do is one of the fragrances, one of the descriptions, by the way, Lorenzo is going to laugh at this, but I do this every time. I want to dramatize the difficulty, almost like you can't imagine how hard we had to search to kind of create this combination.
But also because difficulty, the message of difficulty implies another message, right?
Exactly.
Implies quality, implies
yes.
You've done a crazy amount of hours, thinking this through. This is not like a product that the founder found from Alibaba, and nothing wrong with Alibaba, but this is like something that the founder put a crazy amount of hours and effort into.
That's right. Very cool. Yeah. So then
sorry, Rishi, I have one point in regards to the fragrances.
Yes.
So one missed opportunity about that is actually, so when you select the, let's say, Old Money or Temple Smoke, the only little variation that happens if you want to go, if you want to go on the page and select one of the fragrances on the top.
Oh, on the top. Sorry.
Yeah, and in the product selectors. Yeah. So when you actually click on it, you can't really see it because it's way too zoomed in. But the only thing that changes when the user selects a different fragrance is actually the product image.
Yeah.
Now the question I have is, if the user doesn't scroll, how does he know what fragrance to pick? Because the description of the fragrance is towards the center of the page, right? So now, and also, if you scroll down, not only is towards the center of the page, but it's hidden. Yeah, it's hidden in a product drop down. Sorry, in a drop down, right? So now there's two issues. The person doesn't know what fragrance to pick when selecting all the product selectors, and the person doesn't know that the information is below. And even if the person might know, it's hidden in a drop-down. So now you're hidden in information that hopefully is like, my hypothesis that that information is important in the decision-making process of the user in order to say yes to one product. And you're hiding that information. So just something to keep in mind there.
I totally agree. And that's actually exactly the reason why in my treatment, one of the concepts was to actually have that link over here. And I think this is also an important thing I should mention here as well, is that, I can see a skeptical, I know this is very true, because if I was the brand manager, I would kind of give Lorenzo the same pushback. When you're in the thing, you have a different perspective when you're outside. And something that we want to be very careful about, I don't like analysis, outside analysis, because we don't have context, and people say stupid things like, oh, you should have done this, you've done this. I totally understand that we could be wrong in a lot of the analysis we're doing. We just don't know some details, right? One of the natural pushbacks that a client can give us is that, look, Rishi, if someone is selecting a fragrance, then they obviously realize that it's going to be described somewhere in the description. And so they will have motivation to actually go down and find the fragrances. And this is absolutely correct. But the thing that we are always thinking about there is a whole CRO for higher motivation levels is actually kind of ineffective, because that person will discover it themselves. We are really focused on people that have lower motivation level. And so for them, we are trying to make it a little easier. So I don't think we're suggesting that, and I want to be clear about this, and I would not want you to run an A/B test where the test is just one change, which is you've added this little thing over here that shows the fragrances. I don't think that's strong enough as an idea, but it's one piece of that whole strategy.
Yeah. So before running the A/B test, what I would do is I would analyze the behavior.
I can read your mind and I can guess. Is something to do about scroll tracking?
Yeah, I would analyze. First of all, I would set up, which they don't have at the moment, but I would definitely do it. I would set up some event tracking around definitely like the way they interact with the image, but also how many clicks the fragrances get. If you want to go even like more advanced, you can even figure out how much time people spend reading the copy within the fragrance dropdown to understand then how much reading that is impacting on conversions. And then I would first set up that tracking. And then after that, I would actually dig into the data after maybe like a month or so to understand how people are actually behaving. Yeah, how people are behaving on that page. And then based on the quantitative data that I analyzed, I would come up with an experiment.
He's absolutely correct. And I think one of the things that we're going to start doing in the show is we're going to actually have disagreements. And I think that's going to make it really fun and really make it really interesting. So I 100% agree with what Lorenzo is saying. But I think when it comes to CRO, and almost all agencies actually do it the way Lorenzo is describing it. They kind of do a lot of the heavy lifting up front. So I'm a very small agency and don't have any brand. So I actually can't afford to have 5 failing tests. And then, so my point is this, I would actually not do any of this analysis or not do any of this tracking before I do the test. I think I want to really emphasize for CROs who are either independent consultants or working in a company where they don't have that much leverage over their clients, people like me, it's actually very difficult to actually coordinate a tracking project with the client. Even if you were to do it yourself, it's complicated. There's a fair amount of code and you have to have technical know-how and stuff like that. It's very valuable. So the only difference between what Lorenzo is saying and what I'm saying is the sequencing. So my whole philosophy is that apply common sense. So for example, when I kind of said that, I think that this is a fragrance play, I have zero evidence of it. I just pull it out of my ass. But I feel it's strong enough where I can like put together an A/B test with 10 hours of work and just validate at least directionally if that's the right thing. My whole thesis is that the mindset of the client shifts once we can actually demonstrate that we can get some traction. But the moment you've got that traction through that common sense approach to running a test, you need to immediately use that goodwill to invest in that kind of tracking, because what Lorenzo is describing is very powerful. Yes, go ahead.
Here's my middle ground solution for you right here. Instead of going super deep into Google Analytics that maybe the client doesn't want, blah, 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 to be honest, it's just like a GTM setup. So not like, I'm not even like, going to code up the tracking, right? But if the client says no, here's the alternative to that, which is using like a tool like Hotjar, for example, to understand if people are clicking on the fragrance and ingredients, or and I would even watch some session recordings to see what people are doing around the product image, how much they're spending, or how much time they're spending around the fragrance and ingredients part. So that could be like a sort of, it's not as, quantitative and perfect, advanced as setting up an event, but at least it's a little bit of data.
I think you're absolutely right. I totally agree with that middle ground solution. So, all right. So moving ahead with the analysis. So, all right, just gonna try to. Okay. So where was I? So yeah. So point number 7. I had no comments. No comments. Then I kind of had for point number 18. I had some comments over here. So here's, I have an explanation over here. So what I wanted to do was essentially, I think this copy that they have over here, I think this is pretty good for skimmers, but I want to think about like, okay, if someone says, I want more, like someone says I want more explanation, then what would I do? So in our concept, in my concept over here, I actually showed them exactly the same copy. I didn't change any of it, just literally the same copy. Except I removed this crazy, right? Just because I didn't think it fit in anymore. And then over here, I added a call to action that says new to our brand and want to learn more. And so this is obviously optional, and if they're not new to the brand, then it's irrelevant. But when you click on it, I noticed they have some really good content actually. So they have this blog article that talks about what beard oil does and how to use it. And I thought, instead of taking them away from the product page to the blog article, which I'm not a fan of, my thought was like, what if we were to surface this content as a full screen light box? So they're still on the product page, but we're essentially showing them this content. And actually in this content, let me see if there's a video. There's actually a video here as well. And the founder is there. It's a really nice video. It explains blah, 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 blah. So I think it's some really, really good content. So that's one of the things I added. I also thought that there was another video. That's the same video. So yeah, that's from that page. Okay. So thoughts so far, Lorenzo, or should I move ahead?
Yeah, move ahead. I have another couple of ideas, but they're not really related about deconstruction.
Okay. So I want to actually talk about this one. This is actually a really important point. So point number 20, this is really, really interesting. So they talk about this assurance. And this is a really important, let me actually go to the live page. This is something I want to actually add some commentary on. So they talk about, so I like the fact that the font size is different, font style is different, does make it stand out. So it says, if you don't love BeardBrand beard oil or the fragrance you purchase, we'll buy it back or exchange it for another fragrance. No questions asked. Just head over to our exchanges and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, I'm now thinking about this from the perspective of a highly skeptical buyer. And I'm asking myself, like, how could I change some of the language so that it's a little better? So some of the things that I noticed was, so it says we'll buy it back. So this is good personality, kind of doesn't feel like a corporation is talking. So I like that. I really like it, but it's a little unclear. Well, what do you mean by buy it back? Like, do I pay the restocking fee? Do I pay for return shipping? People who are reading the return policy, my whole thesis is that anyone who's reading the return policy already is thinking about the returns. So I felt like we'll buy it back was somewhat vague. I don't think I produced a solution over here, but this is the great thing about deconstruction, is that I would actually not have even noticed this if I hadn't, under point number 20, been forced to actually read this in great detail and notice it. So Lorenzo, did you have any additional thoughts on this?
No, what I thought when I read "will buy back," because it's a language that nobody really uses. So first of all, my hypothesis here is that that language is super powerful. It's more powerful than "we'll give you the money back," basically. But because no company uses it ever.
Exactly, I agree.
The question I have is, well, what does that mean, right? Like, I wonder if, because it's not something that the user is familiar with in general and never saw it on any other website, I wonder if it becomes a confusing element. Because if I'm wearing the marketer's hat, I fucking love it. I really love what they're doing right there. But if I'm wearing the consumer hat, I don't know if I truly would understand it.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think this is an area where I would kind of think about a little more. Totally agree. And then
actually, sorry, Rishi, before you go into the point 21, I want to cover something about just the point 19. You didn't have any comment about that, which is like the stocking up on beard oil, save with our 3-packs.
I don't have any thoughts, but you might.
Yeah, so if you click through, if you go on the product page and you click through that link, it basically takes you to another product page where they're basically selling a 3-pack, right? So now what they're doing is they're selling more quantity of the same product. Now, if you go into my reviews mining, there's a section called cross-sell. And what I've done here, basically here, I put the list of all the products that customers have said to have bought along together with the beard oil. Now, what I'm wondering here, like, there's a few thoughts, and they also have, if you go back to the product page, just the normal one, not the 3-pack, the normal one.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you scroll down, they have a section where there is a cross-sell.
This?
No, I think it's a little bit more down.
This?
Yeah, exactly. So two things. So they have this section which is like kind of like more towards the end of the page. So what I would want to test here is upsell, which is like 3 products, versus cross-sell. Because my hypothesis here is like, well, if I come in as the first-time buyer or a first-time visitor, would I want to buy the same thing but in more quantities? What if I'm not sold about that product, right?
Yeah, you'll definitely not want to buy it as a first-time buyer in quantities, yeah.
Or if I'm trying to get a specific job done, would I want to buy other products besides the beard oil that help me get the job done?
Yeah.
Which could be like the bulb, for example, right? So I think, or the combo. So what I would want to test here is upsell versus cross sell. Obviously, I would want to understand the AOV, a bunch of other metrics. And the way to think about this is also like, yeah, sure, you can look at reviews mining to understand what other products people have mentioned to have bought. But I would actually look at GA. There's a very good report called the product analytics report, where it shows you all the different products that people buy, so you can see the sales and so on.
In
but
GA, you're saying?
In GA, yeah, in Google Analytics. But I would also look at the Shopify CRM report, just to see like what other products are being bought together with a beard oil, and then I would create a cross-sell package just for that. There's one more thing that I want to add. So while I was analyzing all the different reviews, somebody mentioned that they have, and I didn't even think about this. This is why I love reviews mining, by the way. But some people mentioned, because I'm a fanatic about my beard, I have my morning routine and I have my night routine, right? So now that obviously triggered a lot of curiosity in my brain. And I was like, well, I want to go into research mode and understand how many of my current customers are actually following a routine. And because if I translate this into the whole like beauty and skincare industry, for example, a lot of women have their own morning routine and night routine, right? And that got me thinking, I wonder how many of their customers have their routine. And if a lot of customers that are super, super into like beard care have that routine, I wonder if they can create a custom bundle page where the user can pick and choose all the different products that are part of the typical routine. Again, this is just me not knowing anything about the whole beard caring industry. I would want to go into their customers and understand a little bit more about their customers and their routine and so on.
And it's a really valid point, because also if they have a routine, let's say they did do a survey and they find that 70% of their buyers have a routine, it's much easier for them to actually fit into that routine and sell in that context of like, we fit into your routine versus like, here's a standalone product that you can buy, right?
Exactly. So that's the thought I had, like create a custom bundle page where the user can literally like pick and choose.
I love it. I think do you have one more thing to mention, or?
No, that's all I have.
Awesome. Okay, so let's see where we are with the reviews mining. We're going to be doing some resizings over here. So, okay, so I think we're getting towards the end of it also. So under the product information, they had this explanation, and let me see if I can make this a little bigger, but I can show it to you live. So I'm basically saying over here, this copy, sorry. Is it this? Oh no, it's this. Okay, the product information, and my job isn't to like always find like improvements for things. Sometimes you read something, you're like, this is really good. I don't need to make any more changes here. And I just mentioned that over here, that the copy is really bloody good. So that's great. But there is one question, and I should now read it. Let me see why this is so small? Why is it so small? Okay. So yeah, my question is, this emphasis on, this is a really important point actually. So one thing I noticed when I read that description was that the emphasis was a lot talking about, because they talked about like, this doesn't have the testosterone inhibiting chemicals. They're really emphasizing the fact that it really facilitates beard growth. And so that was like the emphasis of that. So my question was, is that the core audience we're going after, the people who are looking for more growth? So I love the fact that the copy has singular focus, but this is something I try and to better understand the client. Some of the other types of buyers that we might be speaking to are people who want to moisturize and soften the beard hair, And so there wasn't enough emphasis in that block for them. People who have never used beard oil before, they're using for the very first time. So they may not actually care about the fact that, that it's got the testosterone inhibiting chemicals. And then people who have used beard oil, but just not this brand. So I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to break the audience into these buckets. And what I would do is maybe you could, as simple, this is where you can use maybe active participation. You can say, like pick an option that best, best kind of matches you, and then you can show them some personalized content around that.
Yeah, it's almost like pick and choose your own adventure.
That's right. Yeah. So I thought the copy was really good, but I just felt that, that there were these different use cases that we could have focused on. So moving to 24, they have reviews over here. I don't know what my notes are. Actually, I did this analysis a week ago. So there's a lot to be said for the reviews. Are the reviews a conversion catalyst? This is the first thing I'd be tracking for. Again, this goes back to what Lorenzo said about having tracking set up. If tracking isn't possible, I just assume that the reviews are, and I'll create a treatment using the code. So let me see I didn't have any content. What I'm basically saying over here is that what is unknown to me at this point, and Lorenzo kind of covered this in his analysis, is that, are people seeing the fragrances? Similarly, I would make the argument that are people actually reading the reviews, and what effect does that have on conversion rates? Because the reason why that matters is that if the client came back to us and said, we find that people who are reading our reviews, who let's say three or four reviews, have a conversion rate that is like 4 times higher than our average conversion rate for this product page, then I would really emphasize that point, because I would then see how many people actually seeing the reviews, and I would actually focus in on that. So it's really important, and this is the point that Lorenzo had made about the data tracking. If you don't have the data tracking, if you don't have that information, then you're just flying blind. So that was the point I wanted to make.
Cool.
Is there stuff? There's still stuff in your reviews, mind?
Yeah, right? I have one idea, and then I have one final thought that kept on bugging me since I actually started to understand more about this brand.
Okay.
So my last idea, if you go into my reviews mining doc, there's a tab called type of customer. This is like nothing new here, like loyal customer or first time buyer. Of course, you're gonna bucket them in that way, right? But the reason why I kind of like started to understand, what kind of people read reviews, is because this is a consumable product, right? This is no different than a shampoo. This is no different than, olive oil. This is a deodorant and so on. And for that reason, I think there's we messaged them you messaged the founder to ask why they don't really make it so prominent. But one thing I noticed that on the product page, they don't have the option to subscribe for the product.
Yeah.
So what Rishi has done is, he's like, oh, I'm not sure why they don't have that, right? So you tweeted at the founder. Do you want to explain what you tweeted at?
Yeah, I just said, I see that you don't have it, and I know that almost every DTC brand that's a consumable product is really emphasizing subscriptions, and I just wanted to say, what's your, because he's kind of going against the grain, and I wanted to understand what the logic was, and he's, and Lorenzo knows the answer, right?
Yeah, and so he said two things, which I think it's very interesting. The first reasoning that he said is, I want to limit the choices that users have to make as much as possible. So I think this is a super, super fair point. Very fair point. Now, my counter argument around that is, what happens if you add one more choice that the user has to make, and that choice has to be, between one time and subscription? And what happens if the conversion rate actually goes down? But now all of a sudden, you have an army of people that are going to be on a subscription-based recurring revenue. So if you actually model the data, there's a point where actually introducing subscription. So let's say you introduce subscription and conversion goes down, right? There's a way to actually model the data to understand how much you're actually losing in revenue by decreasing the conversion rate, but then you're actually gaining future revenue because you're introducing subscription. So what I would do is I would actually create that model in the spreadsheet. I would run the test, introduce the subscription, and see how, as his hypothesis is, well, I want to reduce the number of choices that users have to make as much as possible. So why don't testing, introducing that subscription on the product page and modeling the numbers in the next 6 months by seeing how the drop in conversion rate, that again is still an hypothesis unless they tested in the past, actually balances out with additional revenue that they have because of subscription. The other point I have about subscription that he made is that, subscription is actually not our focus at the moment, which was actually very surprising to me when he said that. And I want to talk for 2 minutes about the benefits of the subscription for consumable products. I think in general, a lot of DTC have the potential of introducing subscription, even if they're not a consumable product. But I want to talk about for consumable products. So first of all, increase lifetime value, because now all of a sudden you have people that automatically are buying every month or whatever the cadence is. The second one, you as a media buyer, for example, or a company in general, can afford to increase the customer acquisition cost right away, because you're actually offsetting that cost multiple times on the customer, because the customer is coming back. The third one is you don't have to rely so much on new customers coming in. So for example, if these guys have been, let's say, on a subscription for like a month, like a year, right? Now, what happens is if they turn off completely any sort of like traffic source, the business, of course, is going to go down in terms of revenue, but not as much, because now they have customers on a subscription that keep on buying without any sort of like reminder. The other point I had is subscription also increases your profit, because you have more recurrent customers that come back without you having to go back and reacquire them. So that means the profit increases. The other 2 points I had were one, it helps you with inventory forecasting, because now you can model how many orders you'll have from recurring customers in the next 3, 6, 12 months, which is always pretty good for cash flow management. And lastly, whenever you have a subscription offering, it makes the business more predictable. And what happens is when the business is more predictable, increases the value of the business. So let's say tomorrow you're either wanting to sell the business, or you want to raise capital, you are in a better position because your business is more valuable.
Better multiple.
Exactly. The last final thought I have is, since the moment I started to kind of like trying to understand a little bit more about this business and their customers, there was one question that kept on bugging me over and over and over, which I didn't go down the rabbit hole to try to answer. But the question was, what are the main motivations why men decide to grow a beard and start to take care of a beard? And I think if you and I went down that rabbit hole of truly understand why, I think we would come up with like a lot of very interesting insights. One kind of like hypothesis I had is like, well, maybe like, growing a beard is for a specific type of men that have a specific type of lifestyle. I don't know, maybe like farmers or people that want to feel particularly manly. Another hypothesis I had was, well, maybe like somebody that got divorced or had kind of like a an event happening in their life, and now they want to change a little bit their style. But this is just like my assumptions. I would actually love to go down the rabbit hole and understand that a little bit more.
And yeah, that's a really good point. And the thing is that if you look at the statistics, I haven't looked at it, but I'm pretty sure having a beard is still very much a minority thing. So to me, part of, I think, what their motivator could be just being different. And I think that's something that the brand could hijack that point a little bit to kind of emphasize, like, because part of really what part of the whole idea as a marketer is I'm just reflecting back the inner view that the buyer has, right? So by simply reflecting that back, even though that has no attribute necessarily connection to the beard oil, it just is a scent trail for me to say, oh yes, I'm in the right place. I'm going down the right path because these people relate to me,
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes of all the time is actually from a copywriter, of course. And basically, it says, you want to enter into the inner dialogue that is already happening in the mind of the buyer.
That's right.
And that's when I read that quote, I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what a marketer should be doing all the time.
Exactly. No, wonderful, wonderful. Have we covered everything, Lorenzo?
Yeah, I think so.
We can dismiss the class.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you guys I think this again turned out to be a 1 hour episode. We thought it would be actually shorter. But every time Lorenzo and I kind of go down this discussion with you guys, there are certain things that we want to emphasize. And again, we hope we would love to get your comments on things that you liked, things maybe that you even if you had ideas on. So we've had comments previously about formatting. We obviously have very limited production capabilities. So obviously, like even on this call, Lorenzo and I've had discussions about I know Lorenzo cares a lot more about the production quality, and I wanted to be nice too, but essentially we're trying to put out content. But if there's any inputs you guys have or any specific questions you have about the topics that Lorenzo's reviews mining or anything else, just let us know and we'll be sure to answer it. And then we'll see you guys for our next episode shortly. Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao. Ciao.